Welcome back. I am the loud little ducky. We are going to jump into part two of the Sandra Birchmore internal investigation into Stoughton Police Department. And here we have Matthew Farwell, who is the biggest problem in all of this, the undivine Robert Devine, Farwell twin brother number 2, William Farwell, and the school resource officer that never needed to exist, Joshua Healy. These 4 men need to be in prison. Let's jump right into part 2. Blank is familiar with Sandra Birchmore's blank with Matthew Farwell. I'm going to say affair. He would discourage her from high expectations of where the relationship was headed. There were discussions between Blank and Sandra Birchmore that describe redacted. When I inquired about Blank, he took a break with he returned to the interview room and indicated that he wanted to consult with legal counsel before proceeding with the remainder of the interview. Then it goes into second interview. A second interview of redacted was conducted on February 9th, 2022 at 2 p.m. at the Abington Hall in the prearranged conference room. Heel was present with Blank. So this is going to be Joshua Healy, or Heel. We discussed Blank use of different social media accounts. He told us of the ones that he currently has and previously had Blank elaborated, redacted. Matthew Farwell used some type of location sharing application so that he could track the location of Sandra Birchmore. Blank was familiar with the extensive message that Sandra Birchmore drafted and sent to Blank. The nature of the message was ultimately intended to be sent to Matthew Farwell. Redacted, Sandra was telling Blank that Matthew was blank. I wonder if that is about the baby. On April 6, 2022, I interviewed Angelique Perazzi in her home in South Boston. We spoke for a short while before I turned the recorder on about the internal affairs process. After the recorder was on, Angelique explained that she is Sandra Birchmore's mother's first cousin, Denise Birchmore. She explained when asked her education, current employment, National Education Association as a legislative advocate. She spoke of her learning of the death of Sandra in her later interview with the Massachusetts State Police. Her goal in being interviewed was to raise awareness about Sandra's relationship with Matthew Farwell and how the relationship had grown toxic prior to the end of Sandra's life. She went on to describe the pressure that Sandra was placing on Matthew Farwell to participate in the baby's life. Generally, things were not going well, and Angelique was encouraging Sandra to back off pressuring Matthew. Yeah, he's not going to want to be very involved in that baby's life because it's an affair that is secretive, and he has a wife, kids, and a newborn at home. Blank had breakfast with Sandra a couple of weeks prior to her death. After this, Angelique learned about the pregnancy after communicating with Sandra, giving Blank advice, and had concerns for Sandra's well-being based on the fact that she was in a relationship with Blank. Blank received contact from many of Sandra's friends after Sandra's death. She communicated with them and received a lot of secondhand information about the relationship. She also learned that redacted. We also discussed the Police Explorers program. Blank was unfamiliar with the program, but Sandra described as Blank had secondhand knowledge that Sandra had babysat for Matthew Farwell and his wife in the past. Based on her knowledge, notwithstanding it being secondhand, when asked if Blank believed that Sandra blanked, when asked if thought Sandra Birchmore was a person who could be blank, when asked if she believed that Sandra Birchmore had been blank. I imagine if that's talking about maybe being depressed or a person that would do some unaliving type things, but that has all been redacted. So it's just suspicions at this point from myself. Contact was made directly by me and later by PI El Italian by phone in an attempt to interview blank. This investigation identified blank as a longtime and close friend of Sandra Birchmore. After discussion with blank, she did not want to be interviewed in a formal capacity. She was later interviewed by telephone by PI El Italian. See interview summary below. It states, I made contact with blank through investigative means. He provided a cell phone for blank, indicating that blank, after several attempts by me and later by PA El Italian and Fries, blank would not respond and was ultimately not interviewed by me. She was interviewed by phone by PI El Italian. See interview summary below. Officer Robert Devine. On April 11, 2022, Officer Devine was interviewed at MPTC headquarters in Randolph, Massachusetts. PI El Italian and Fries conducted the interview. Attorney Patrick Bryan was present to represent Devine. On behalf of the Patrolmen's Union, the interview is summarized below. Devine took over control of the Police Explorers program in approximately 2003. He stated that it was in existence prior to his assignment as a juvenile officer. He was ordered to run the program by former chief, and I'm not even going to pronounce that name because I know I will mess it up. After taking over, Devine gave the first group that he took on the option of making the program less about scouting and to run it like a junior police academy. The group went with the option and the program remained, or with that option, and the program remained that way until the end. Devine described the program, its structure, rank, ride-alongs, and age groups 13 through 18 years of age. Requirement for parental consent as well as advertising for the program were also discussed. Devine met the victim Sandra Birchmore when she entered the program in 2011 at age 14. He was familiar with the difficult home life that she had while in school as an explorer and as an adult. When asked if he kept in touch with her, Devine said that he had not, but that Sandra Birchmore would find him, but she never had his cell phone. He discussed her obsession with police officers. He would meet her while he was on duty and she would offer to bring him coffee, etc. They would typically talk for a while and then he would leave. This occurred about once per week. Devine denied having any type of social interaction with Sandra Birchmore outside of his employment with the town. Devine discussed how Sandra Birchmore would exaggerate stories, and he spoke of her telling him of blank. Devine discussed an encounter where Sandra Birchmore approached him at a Doyle's pub in Brockton at around the time of her 21st birthday. She approached him at the bar, and he left. Devine denied that he communicated with Sandra Birchmore on any texting, messaging, social media platform, burner phone, Snapchat, or otherwise. He spoke of the redacted. Devine found out about the relationship between Matthew Farwell and the victim, Sandra Birchmore, when he got put on leave, and later qualified his response that Sandra Birchmore had mentioned the relationship previously as a consenting adult. She spoke to Devine about a relationship with William Farwell. Devine did not believe her. I mean, could that be true if she's known to exaggerate and she's not, and she can be a little obsessive? Maybe, but I'm not buying it. Especially when we know what we know already about Devine. Devine admitted to engaging in flirtatious behavior with a former police explorer and police intern named Blank. He also spoke about a former police explorer that he has kept contact with as adults. Devine denied knowledge of the Farwell brothers being accused of impersonating police officers when they were teenagers and pulling over cars. Are you kidding me? Not only were they, in this Police Explorers program when they were younger, but they were going around impersonating a police officer, which is against the law. But nobody knew about this. They didn't get in trouble. Nothing happened to them. Like they should have been kicked out of the program after this. Second interview of Robert Devine. A second interview had been scheduled for Thursday, August 18th, 2022. Devine resigned pending his application for retirement from employment prior to the interview date. The resignation was effective August 16th, 2022, and in the letter from the appointing authority accepting the resignation, there was a reference to retirement. Devine authored a letter that was delivered to Chief McNamara by me that I received from Union President Barber. The letter had Chief McNamara's address in the heading, but was addressed to the Stoughton Police Department. In the letter, Devine harshly criticized the investigation, and the second paragraph requested that if we have new ground to cover, to send it to him in writing. Exhibit 17 encompasses this letter and a letter that I sent to Devine via first-class mail with a deadline to respond by Friday, August 26, 2022. On April 11, 2022, I interviewed blank. Was present with blank during the interview. Blank was familiar with the fact that Sandra Birchmore was in the Police Explorers program because they spoke about it. Blank was unfamiliar with the members of Stoughton Police Department, other than Sandra Birchmore speaking about some members that Sandra Birchmore pointed out to him while they were driving together. When asked about a text message that Blank had sent to Sandra Birchmore about asking Blank for money and money owed, and absolutely no recollection of the conversation, as shown the text message in which he threatens to disclose Sandra Birchmore's relationship with members the Stoughton Police Department if she would not repay the debt owed to the girls. Blank recalled that Sandra Birchmore had mentioned Blank, Matthew, and William Farwell in their past conversations. So this person seems to know more than they're letting on. On April 4th, 2022, I interviewed Blank at approximately 10 a.m. in my office for a prearranged interview. Redacted. Had Sandra Birchmore. As Sandra struggled in the area of math, Sandra would have been in the 7th grade and approximately aged 12 or 13. As a general impression, Blank indicated when asked that Sandra was socially blank. She would often accuse students of bullying her and spent a lot of time in guidance counseling. Felt that Sandra would exaggerate her accusation. She was a good kid with a kind heart. When I read a list of symptoms that described Blank. So this here lies part of the problem, is maybe Sandra is not not completely all there mentally, but she loved police officers. She was kind, but because they thought, oh, well, because she's not mentally all there, and they know that everything is not complete, they can just brush everything off. Oh, she's exaggerating. Oh, she's just making stuff up. And so everybody pushes to where you can't believe her because she's just crazy, is probably how they put it. And so nobody believed. They just listened to her and like, yeah, sure, Sandra. Yep, But nobody would really understand what she was going through. And that's sad. You know, she just wanted to be a regular person, a normal person. You know, she wanted friends. She wanted love and a relationship. She wanted to be a mother. And some people maybe were good to her, but a lot of people just brushed her off like she was just crazy. And it's sad because people, even people that aren't completely there, can be messed with too. And yeah, she probably is bullied, and I don't think she was exaggerating about that. Her feelings probably got hurt quite a bit. Maybe some of it she took more personal than she should have, but with where she was as a person, who cares? To her, it hurt her feelings, and she felt like she was being bullied. But because of her mental capacity, several officers decided to take advantage of her, because who would believe her if she even spoke out about it? She was obsessed with the police. She would just make up things. She was delusional. She was having these relationships in her head because she fantasized about it. And nobody would believe her. That is true, sadly, until you look into it for the evidence. And there is a huge digital trail of it. So just because somebody may not be all the way okay doesn't mean we need to discount every time somebody says something. Look into it. Maybe take it with a grain of salt, but you know what? Maybe think, what if this is actually true? And hear them out. Have a kind heart like Sandra did. Continuing on, when I asked if she discussed drama at the Stoughton PD, Blank spoke of Sandra talking to her about this. Blank indicated that Sandra was obsessed with the Stoughton police. Indicated that Sandra mentioned the high level of stress and officers seeking outlets to relieve their stress. Oh, well, they relieve their stress on Sandra. Disgustingly. Blank punctuated her remarks by telling Sandra, redacted. Blank reconnected with Sandra as an adult via social media and eventually phone, and Blank was aware that Sandra also reconnected with other former teachers. So this was a former teacher of her. Sandra never mentioned the names of the department members that she had associated with when speaking with this person. On April 13, 2022, Blank was interviewed by P.I. Fries and I at MPTC headquarters in Randolph, Massachusetts at approximately 10:24 a.m. The nature of the investigation was discussed. Blank has been employed. Blank. Blank names some members of the Stoughton Police Department with whom he associates. It is mostly members of the 0-100 hours to the 800-hour shift, and some from the 1600 hours to 0-100 hours. So midnight to 8 shift, and some from the 4 to midnight shift. Personnel graduated from Stoughton High School with the victim, Sandra Birchmore. He did not associate with her during high school. Blank is a part-time employee. The first time that he saw Sandra Birchmore after high school was when he came to the blank. Or, no, there is not a blank. Moving on to the next page, my bad. When she came to the store on or about the year 2019 and sought information on a license to carry application. Blank hosts the Massachusetts Basic Firearms Safety class, which is required for first-time license to carry applicants. They become friends on Facebook and began to talking on occasion. Blank ran into Sandra Birchmore one night at the House of Brews and spoke briefly. They were there with separate friend groups. Blank maintained that the relationship was merely an acquaintance. They met on one occasion for pizza at Town Spa and the conversation was casual. They communicated by cell phone, text message, and Facebook Messenger prior to that. At the town spa, Blank felt that she was communicating with Blank because she knew he was an blank, maybe an officer, police officer. And she would often contact Blank about calls that were happening around town that she saw as she would drive around town. Blank characterized when asked that Sandra Birchmore was erratic and the conversation at town spa was all over the place. Blank was aware of her strong desire to become a police officer. Okay, she can have dreams, and apparently she is seeing things that shouldn't be happening, and she is reporting it to the police officers, which, okay, no problem there. Maybe they get tired of it, but, sometimes it's something to check out. Blank is aware of who William Farwell, Matthew Farwell, and Robert Devine are. Blank does not socialize with any of them. Blank was shown a record of text messages that had been sent by Sandra Birchmore to a group chat in where she claims to have been invited to Robert Devine's house and that she was going blank, who is a friend of hers. Blank was unfamiliar with this decision and denied ever having been on at Robert Devine's house with or without Sandra Birchmore, emphasis added. Blank was unaware of any communication that was happening between Robert Devine and Sandra Birchmore, and Sandra Birchmore never mentioned the subject. She discussed her relationship with Matthew Farwell over text message. Blank was aware as of June 2019 approximately that Sandra Birchmore had been in an on-again, off-again relationship with Matthew Farwell. Blank was uncertain of when the relationship began. Blank did not believe Sandra Birchmore because she had a reputation dating back to high school for embellishing stories. So once again, somebody doesn't believe her. Nobody believes her. And this is how these perps get away with this stuff, is they will find people that are vulnerable and that nobody is going to believe, whether they go shout it from the roofs or not. Oh, she always says stuff like that. She's obsessed with them. Right here, this person doesn't believe her. But she had a baby. And he came to her house. And there's disgusting text messages out there. It's just sad. Because she wasn't fully living in a delusion. These people were taking advantage of her because they knew that people wouldn't believe her. When offering a closing comment, Blank stated that there came a point shortly after meeting Sandra Birchmore at Town Spa that Blank had to block her contact on multiple platforms because she was making him uncomfortable. She would show up to locations where Blank was hanging out with friends. That's not okay. But she maybe, she doesn't have a good idea of what boundaries are. Sometimes people don't, and I get how that can make people uncomfortable. But no matter what she did to make anybody feel uncomfortable, she is the victim here. These people took advantage of her, not this particular person. These officers took advantage of her because she was an easy target for them. On Thursday, June 9, 2022, P.I. El Italian and Fries interviewed Blank in her home. Both investigators provided a copy of the MSP investigative report. Copied below is the interview summary of Blank, and it's got El Italian's investigative services, June 13, Deputy Chief Brian Holmes of the Stoughton Police Department. Subject is redacted. June 9th, 2022, on Thursday, June 9th, 2022, at 5:30 p.m., I met with Blank. The meeting took place at her house in an outside patio area. I had spoken to her by phone earlier in the week, and she agreed to meet with me to discuss her knowledge about Robert Devine and the Stoughton Police Department explorers from early 2000s. Blank had previously met with and was interviewed by Lieutenant John Fanning and Trooper Kathleen Prince of the Massachusetts State Police regarding this same topic. Mr. Robert Fries of Bridgewater accompanied me on this interview and was present for its entirety. Blank read in an article in the Boston Globe relative to the death of Sandra Birchmore. The article prompted her to contact the district attorney's office. On April 19, 2022, she met with and was interviewed by Lieutenant Fanning and Trooper Prince. During the course of our interview, we referred to the report of the state police interview, which was written by Trooper Prince. And then a bunch redacted. Robert Devine was an officer at the school who acted as a lunch and hallway monitor and also chaperoned a group of kids who stayed after school for open gym. Blank was very open about having a crush on Devine during the time frame. Yeah, she has a crush on officers, which she admires and loves. Okay? A lot of people have had crushes on men in uniform, okay? Maybe not him, he's not the cutest. But he's also in schools around children, where he does not need to be. Blank was very open about having a crush on Devine during that time frame. She stated she wrote him a letter and explained the contact of the letter by saying, yeah, basically professing my love for him and how beautiful I thought he was. It's very cringing and embarrassing, but yeah, I wrote him a detailed letter about my feelings for him. Her memory was she wrote a letter in October and had a very good memory of it because of the events of September 11th, 2001 that just occurred. Blank continued that she handed Devine the letter, and although he didn't read it in her presence, he gave her a hug, and he was laughing a little bit when she saw him the following days. Like, this wasn't, like, he's making fun of her here. He's not, like, he's not endeared and, like, oh, this is just some cute little girl who has a crush on me. Like, oh, that's heartwarming. Because they probably get a lot of that. Like, there's probably some kindergartens and stuff out there. First graders are like, oh, yeah, that handsome police officer that came to the school and taught us about safety. I want him to be my Valentine. And then they tell their parents that they want to send the biggest Valentine to that police officer. Okay? It happens. But he's not flattered in that way. He is laughing at her, not because he's flattered and heartwarmed. That just sounded like heartworm. Anyways, I asked if he ever addressed the fact that this letter was not appropriate considering her age and his role, and she answered not at all. When I asked specifically about the hug, she described it as definitely a squeeze, and continued that Devine often hugs students, and he always initiated the hugs. Of course he did, because he's a pervert and a child predator. When asked if Devine ever touched her sexually, she was clear that he never did. I referenced the state police report, paragraph 3, and asked about the occasion when he brought her into an office during an open gym. She stated it occurred at a couple of months after she gave him the letter. She had heard he was engaged to be married, and she was sobbing. Devine led her to a room, and she thought could have been a gym teacher's office. Once inside, Devine closed the door and lifted her onto the desk. Devine told her she was a knockout and that he was going to take me on a date when I turned 18. She continued that he gave her a hug and kissed her on the forehead. That's disgusting. That is not just consoling her because she's heartbroken because she found out that the police officer was getting married and he had a girlfriend and it wasn't her. Like, you don't tell people that you're going to take them on a date. You most definitely do not pick up a teenager and lift them onto the desk. And you do not need to be behind closed doors with a female by yourself. Sorry, you just don't need to be. I'm glad it didn't say they closed the blinds or something, because that would have really enraged me. When asked to describe the distance from the gym to this office, she stated it was a good distance from the other kids and nobody could have heard them talking. Well, of course not. He's got to do it in secret. I asked if there were ever any other adults present during open gym. She stated there was occasionally another officer, but never anyone who worked for the school system. Where are the PE teachers? But maybe this is in the after-school program or something. Still. She stated that there are generally 8 to 15 kids present for open gym and often the Farwells were there. She stated they were teenagers at the time and they were there for all of it. They were under his wing. They knew that I was obsessed in love. They were there for all of it. There was one point where I believed it was Matt Farwell. I sobbed in his arms because he, Divine, was getting married. They were there for all of it. She later added the Farwells blank by Divine. She continued, redacted. So I don't know if this was Sandra sent him a letter, or if this person did it that was a friend of Sandra's. And maybe they were a lot alike. Blank continued that she regularly visited the police station to see Divine. She lived within walking distance and was allowed to go past the lobby area to Divine's office. She described an occasion when the shirt she was wearing was revealing her cleavage and that Officer Tracy told her to pull up her shirt. Good on Officer Tracy. She added that although she was too young to be a formal member of the Explorers program, she attended the meetings at the police station on Wednesday evenings. Okay, so she went to go watch the police people. So at this point, she is too young. So she's not like 13 or something yet to go there, I'm guessing, because it says she's too young. Or maybe this was the other girl. Blank stated that Divine had provided his instant messenger username to some of the boys in the Explorers program. One of the boys, named John, with the nickname JR, gave her the username and she attempted to communicate with Divine using that platform. There is no reason to give children your username for instant messenger. No adults need to be talking privately in instant messaging. Nope, I don't care if you're a boy or a girl. Not appropriate. I'd be pissed if my child came home and said, oh, the police officer gave me the thing so I could contact him on instant messenger. Absolutely not. The only thing they should ever give out is maybe their card that has information to the police station, or their little baseball card looking thing. Not personal IM messaging. She stated there were a few short messages between the two, and her father's girlfriend observed her communications with Divine on the computer. What? Who the hell is this girlfriend? I'm sorry. You're letting this child instant message a grown adult. I don't care if you're watching or not. This is not okay. But she's like, yeah, let's do it. Maybe she'll like me now. Like, I'm just being like the friend. No, this is not okay behavior, people. Do not let your kids talk to grown adults, whether you're watching them or not, because there's going to come a time when you're not over their shoulder and they're just going to do it because you've shown them that it is okay to go talk to them. And sometimes they will do it behind your back because you've gone to the bathroom and they're messaging in secret or whatever. Do not let your children think that this is okay. The girlfriend confronted Divine online, telling him he was a creep, and Divine blocked her after that. Okay, thank God. Thank God she did that. Like, she watched it, but then she was like, get out of here, you creep. Okay. I'm going to take some of that back. She at least did that. Her father's girlfriend's name was Blank. Blank is no longer in touch with. Blank stated there was a second letter she wrote that was meant for Divine. Her mother found the letter before it was delivered. After her mother found the letter, she stormed over to the police station to confront Divine. Good. Like, people knew about this stuff when she was young. And he's been caught before, but it wasn't for this incident. So the mom goes and confronts him. She described her mother as furious because Divine didn't reach out to her or anyone else about her behavior and just scuffed it off a little. Blank stated this is the occasion that led to her not attending the Explorer meetings any longer. Good. She maybe should have noticed it a little bit sooner, but she finally did. And she did. But she should have told other people what this scumbag creep was doing. It was her memory that it was the decision of the parents that she no longer attend. She was not aware of anyone from the police station telling her or her mother she could no longer attend. So infuriating. It's disgusting. Next, described on occasion on Easter weekend 2002, when she attempted to place a phone call to Divine's home. It was this event that ended her good relationship with Divine. She stated that she found his phone number and his address in the phone book. For you that are young, that's how we had to find people. We had a book, a phone book that had pretty much everybody's number and address in it. And it was alphabetized. And it was like by the area. And so that's how we would look up people. Eventually, people started to unlist their information. And that is how we were able to prank call people, is because we would just go through the phone book and pick random people, or we would find people that we knew, like from school or something, and we would just call them and ask them if their refrigerator was running. And if they said yes, you would tell them they probably should go catch it. You know, that's some of the fun that we had. That's an older generation. And that Divine did not provide this information to her. So she got this some other way. Divine did not give her this information, which good. He shouldn't be giving her anything. Following this event, her parents redacted. Following the Easter weekend incident, she no longer interacted with Divine. She did offer him an apology when she saw him in school, but after that she didn't attend open gym. She did not need to be, good for her for apologizing. Or I know her mom didn't tell her to go apologize because her mom or whoever did not want her going to talk to him at all. And they should have told the school so that this guy wouldn't be at the school. But she, thinking she has done something wrong, went and apologized. When Divine is the one that should be apologizing and in jail for his behavior. She stated there was occasions when she'd see him in Stoughton. She described occasions when she'd observe him with girls who were middle school aged, driving with him in his personal car. Why are there little girls in your personal vehicle? Plenty of people saw this and nobody said anything. This is why he's able to collect retirement. Is he just able to do this for years and years? She further stated that there were occasions when she and her friends were walking around town and he'd pull up to talk with them. She stated this occurred at times when he was in his police cruiser and other times when he was in his own car. She stated there was another occasion when she was in the 8th grade and was smoking a cigarette outside the high school. He made a comment to her about a cigarette and later reported it to her mother. Really? I mean, she shouldn't have been doing that. In 8th grade, she shouldn't be smoking. But really, you're going to go tattle on her to her mother for a cigarette? And you're over here getting your jollies off with middle school kids? Give me a break. Toward the end of the interview, I asked Blank if she thought Divine was acting as a big brother or a father figure to the kids at school or the kids in the Explorer program. To this, she answered, he was definitely not like a father figure. He definitely seemed to be showing off and loving the attention from kids and basking in kids' admiration of him. She insisted there had never been any type of sexual activity between her and Divine. So this is not Sandra. This is another girl that possibly was like Sandra or maybe friends with Sandra at one point in her life that had some similar experiences with people. But mostly Divine. And yeah, he loved the attention from the kids, especially the female kids, because he liked little female girls. Blank thanked us for meeting with her and stated she would remain available and we can contact her anytime with further questions. This report is a summary of the interview. Blank. The interview was approximately 41 minutes in duration and was recorded and later transcribed. A copy of the transcript is an exhibit associated with this report. Respectfully submitted, P.I.L. Italian. Once again, he's documenting this was 41 minutes, it was recorded, and there's also a written transcript. So we have backed up data of our investigation and these things. If you need to find what this thing was about, there's a recorded version and there's a written version of it. And you can find these things. And here they are. Great detailing reporting. June 17th, 2022, Deputy Chief Brian Holmes, Stoughton Police Department. Subject is a phone interview of blank and a phone interview of blank. On Thursday, June 9th, 2022, at 7 p.m., I spoke by phone with blank. Earlier in the evening, I had left a message for her and she returned my call. Robert Fries was present for the interview as I spoke to blank on the speakerphone and spoke to the Massachusetts State Police following the untimely death of Sandra Birchmore. She did not wish to meet with us in person, nor did she wish to be named as a formal witness to this matter. We spoke with blank for approximately 26 minutes. Her major focus was that she believed Sandra would never unalive herself. She offered no first-hand information other than her belief. When asked if she ever met the Farwell brothers, she stated she had not. When they asked if she had any information regarding Robert Devine, she stated she's aware of his history, but Sandra had never mentioned his name. Blank added that she was living in Blank during the COVID pandemic and quarantine and stayed in touch with Sandra by text and video messaging. Sandra shared information with her, redacted. Blank was clear that her major concern was her suspicion that Sandra had not blinked. She stated she has been in touch with Lieutenant Fanning of the state police regarding her suspicions. It is important to note that Blank did the majority of the talking during our conversation, but added nothing firsthand that could be of assistance to the investigation. So she's just saying, hey, I don't think that Sandra would have ever done this to herself. It's suspicious and something ain't right here. And good for her for speaking about that. She may not know anything else, but she's like, something's fishy here. This is not how this happened. Blank phone interview conducted by PI Elitalian and Fries. On Friday, June 17th, 2022, at 10 a.m., I spoke by phone with Blank. Blank was at work when I called, but agreed to speak with me for a few minutes and made a Facebook post about the untimely death of Sandra Birchmore and members of the Stoughton Police Department. Blank stated she had spoken to Sandra Birchmore in years. Hadn't spoke to Sandra Birchmore in years. She continued by saying, I wouldn't consider her a friend. They knew each other in middle school and they both graduated from Stoughton High School. She had no first-hand information about Sandra's death and admitted that everything she had heard was from friends and families of Sandra who posted information online. I asked if she had spoken to any of the friends or families, and she stated she had not. She stated that the material she read online was that certain members of Stoughton Department had preyed on her instead of mentoring her. And that is a great summary of what has happened. Preyed on her instead of mentoring her. I asked if she had been involved in the Explorers program, and she stated she had not. Blank could not speak for long, but stated she was glad to see the matter is being investigated. So this is a person that knew of Sandra from middle school and high school, just because they went to school with each other, and that she saw something. She had made a Facebook post, that was like, if this is true, I know who this person is. I'm not friends with her, but if this is true, yeah, this isn't okay. And so this person didn't have much to add, but was like, this is what I had heard, and thank goodness if she's being preyed on and not mentored, that this is being investigated. So good for somebody speaking. If you know something, or you see something, or you post something, say something. It may just be a little bit, and while it may not add anything, it's still another piece to the puzzle. If you see something or know something, speak up, however minute you might think it may be. On Thursday, August 11th, 2022, Blank was interviewed at MPTC Randolph headquarters. We reviewed Blank employment history with Blank. We redacted. We discussed other roles with the school department, youth program, and initiatives. We asked a series of questions pertaining to inappropriate conduct that he may have seen in relation to Officer Devine. We discussed the supply closet that was referenced by Blank and Blank. Knew about the closet and that it was generally an athletic supply storage area. Blank never saw Officer Devine in that closet alone with a student hanging or hugging a student, having a student sitting on his lap, or any kind of conduct of that nature. Blank did not see Officer Devine using his personal vehicle to transport students at any time. Blank was unfamiliar with any interaction involving Blank and did not remember any exchange of love notes between Blank and Devine. When asked about Sandra Birchmore, Blank characterized her as blank. Blank was familiar with her. She was a classmate. They were a classmate of Sandra Birchmore. Blank was also familiar with her participation in the Police Explorers program. Blank never saw Sandra Birchmore with Officer Devine in any capacity. So this person is saying nothing. So be interested to see why they are getting interviewed and being brought into this. So let's continue on. After the death of Sandra Birchmore, Blank began to hear rumors of her involvement with Matthew Farwell. Prior to that, Blank did not have any knowledge of this. Blank found it to be repulsive that Matthew Farwell had a relationship with a person blank. Blank spoke of a sense of betrayal and losing a close friend in Matthew Farwell. So apparently this person is a friend of Matthew Farwell's, or was. And prior to Sandra's death, this person that knew Matthew didn't know about his disgusting second life and is disgusted with his behavior. On August 11, 2022, Blank was interviewed at MPTC headquarters building in Randolph, Massachusetts. He appeared blank. We discussed blank and employment history blank. Blank is familiar with the Open Gym program. We discussed the program. When asked, Blank never saw a student sitting on Robert Devine's lap or see any appropriate conduct. When asked specifically about the claim that Blank made about being told to pull her shirt up, Blank described that if a student were ever inappropriately dressed, Blank would correct the behavior and send the student to the office. Blank also recalled a discussion that Blank had with Devine when something female that thought was a police explorer, scantily clad in Devine's office. Blank confronted Devine about the optics of the visit by the student and cautioned Devine about being smarter with his actions. After hearing what Blank described, the student was likely not Blank. Blank did not recall an incident as described, Blank involving Blank. We discussed Sandra Birchmore's characterized blank and redacted, was familiar with her participation on the Police Explorers, and that she was a member of the martial arts gym across from the station. Blank knew that she wanted to intern for the police department and had done so at the court. When asked about another encounter involving a haunted house that Blank did at Blank's house, Blank recalled Robert Devine and his wife attending this event. Blank would hold the event annually, and he recalled seeing Devine with a woman named Blank. He thought the encounter to be odd, as it appeared that Devine was with her and Blank arrested her for Blank. When he and Devine were working, Devine pointed out Blank had turned her life around. Okay. So Devine was with this other woman, or with a woman, that maybe Devine arrested in the past, and his reason for it was that she turned her life around, and she's not that person that he arrested that long ago. Like, how are these men's wives feeling about the people they are with? I hope all of them that are married are getting divorced and that they never see their children again. Because they don't, if they have them. I know Matthew Farwell has children. I don't know about anybody else. I don't know if Devine has children. But none of them need to be married. None of them need to be around children ever. Let them go to jail and let the prisoners handle it themselves. I later located in-house records for Blank that corroborated the previous Blank. So maybe they had gone and looked up the arrest record that Devine did with that particular woman. All right. Now we're getting into credibility assessment. Ooh, goody. I viewed blank as a credible person. The relationship had its inception from a teacher/counselor relationship and evolved into a friendship of sorts when Sandra Birchmore reconnected with blank as an adult. So maybe they knew each other when Sandra was a child, and then when Sandra started working at the school, she became like a friend and maybe a coworker or something of Sandra's. That is my guess. I do not know. Seemed to have a genuine desire to help the victim, Sandra Birchmore, and had a foundational knowledge of the difficulties that Sandra Birchmore had been struggling with in her early years. Blank's responses were unwavering and consistent. I did not view any indications of deception or lack of consistency in her responses. She was interviewed by Massachusetts State Police. Then we have blank. I view blank as a credible person. She is blank, Sandra Birchmore, and provided a considerable amount of secondhand knowledge about the events of the life of Sandra Birchmore. She had some contact with the media and friends of Sandra Birchmore and had been interviewed by phone by the Massachusetts State Police. She felt strongly that Matthew Farwell blank Sandra Birchmore in the years prior to her death. I'm just going to let somebody maybe fill in that blank. Blank with Sandra Birchmore had more contact with her and more frequently communicated with her. Her discussions with Sandra seemed to be a pragmatic nature in reference to the blank. I do not view blank as a credible person. So this person is not credible. During his interview, he provided little information, if any. When asked about a confrontational text message that he had with the victim, Sandra Birchmore, owed money to the girls, he could not recall the conversation of the last names of the girls. Having described that they shared a dorm/suite, I find it implausible that blank could not recall this information. He also demonstrated a very high degree of nonverbal guarded behavior, was sweating, and appeared to be nervous through my interview. Okay, so this person was nervous. They're not very much older. So this person is not like old and it's been like 20 years or something since they've had a dorm or roommates. So trying to remember, you should know your roommates' last names. So he's holding something back. And right now, he seems to be the only male so far. So there's 2 female witnesses. And that are credible, 1 male not credible. Okay, nope. The next one, I view blank to be a credible person. At no time did I observe him deviate from his baseline poise, and I saw no indicators of deception. His answers were direct and showed no hesitation. He appeared comfortable in discussing Sandra Birchmore with P.I. Fries and I. Okay, so something is weird about this other guy with the dorm room and the girls' text messages. He's hiding something. It may not have anything to do with something else, but there's something shady. Maybe he just wants to be a part of this. Or maybe he doesn't want to be a part of this and something else. Maybe there's something in his background he don't want nobody to know. And it could have nothing to do with the Sandra Birchmore case. He just may be nervous, and because he's nervous because of something else, that he's just not remembering things. You just never know, but it's interesting. Now we're going to get to Robert Devine. I do not view Robert Devine to be a credible person. He denied having any sort of blank or social relationship with victim Sandra Birchmore. Now notice when he was going through the notes in the interview, they didn't put their opinions and stuff in it. They just wrote what the person said. Then we have now their opinions on how their interviews went. Subsequent to his first interview, Chief McNamara and I were briefed by PI L. Italian, and Fries on his response to the interview. Hearing the response, we were both in agreement that Devine had been untruthful about his knowledge of the Farwell brothers having been caught impersonating the police. So he knew about it. This fact would have been part of the background investigation process that Devine, as a member of the hiring panel for Farwell, would have been privy to. Okay, so they did get in trouble, and it is documented in police records. But yet we're going to hire this person? I don't think they should get hired if they're going to impersonate them. Because they were doing stuff when they weren't officers. What are they going to do when they actually do have a badge? Wouldn't be somebody that I'd want to hire. In addition, this was widely known throughout the department. Devine's response was that must have been before my time. Was an implausible response. Devine was in charge of the Police Explorers program and was familiar with the Farwell brothers. Right. So when the Farwell brothers were in the Police Explorers program, the entire time they were there, Devine was there, so it wasn't before his time. Come up with something better. Devine frequently sat on the hiring panel for new employees. As a part of the process, Devine would have been briefed on the background investigation by the investigating detectives. Exhibit 34 is an example from the background investigation of William Farwell. The expert shows that William Farwell spoke to the investigator about being counseled by Sergeant Devine and Lieutenant Boney and getting caught in the act of impersonating a police officer. Why was he still hired? I don't care if he was doing things as a punk kid. That is just not something. No. He was trying to get away with doing things as somebody who wasn't a police officer. You think these guys, when they're given a badge, aren't going to do other things because they see that badge as some kind of power? They're already on a power trip in the Explorers program. To me, that would be red flags galore. In addition, after the completion of the first interview, an abundance of evidence to the contrary of his response was uncovered. A Facebook alias showed Devine, blank, Sandra Birchmore, as well as her relationship with Matthew Farwell. They also discussed meeting blank. At the completion of his credibility assessment, a second interview of Robert Devine was pending and would widen in scope to include untruthfulness in addition to a myriad of other policy violations for the relationship with the blank. In a previous investigation that resulted in Devine's demotion from deputy police chief to patrolman blank, the investigation found that Devine was lacking in candor in some of his responses, but he did not make a sustained finding for untruthfulness. Devine's history with the investigation conducted by Paul White is an example of exploitive, misogynistic, and risk-seeking behavior that supersedes his professional responsibilities in that case as well as this. In both cases, Devine violated his inherent position of the public trust. For the foregoing reasons, I do not view Devine as a credible person. Yeah, there's several examples of Devine not being a good standing person. He should not have a badge. He got demoted when he was found to have a different sexual relationship with a high school student. Not Birchmore. The second interview of Robert Devine, a second interview had been scheduled and was to be conducted at MPTC headquarters in Randolph, Massachusetts by PI L. Italian and Fries. This interview was scheduled for Thursday, August 18th, 2022, I'm guessing. Robert Devine resigned from his employment prior to that date. From this, I draw a negative inference, a series of questions that would have been asked of Robert Devine as detailed in Exhibit 13. Blank. I do not view blank as a credible person. Okay, so this person is not credible. Let's see. In this first interview, he denied having blank with the victim, Sandra Birchmore. The interview process was stopped when the line of questioning began, as well as questions pertaining to his knowledge of other members of Stoughton Police Department that Sandra Birchmore had involvement with blank, arranged for further consultation with blank. Blank described his friendship with Sandra Birchmore that evolved into him in a quasi-big brother role in which he would give her life advice. Some of this advice included direction on her relationship with Matthew Farwell. After several attempts to schedule a second interview, blank would have to be compelled by order of the court, probably, in order to comply with the policy of blank. To the extent I would characterize blank as a reluctant witness, I'll bet a compelled witness, from this evasive effort, I draw negative inference. Some discussions recovered from evidence Exhibit 18 centered on his desire to meet a blank. So admitted to the illicit conversations that he would have with Sandra Birchmore. In my opinion, blank is as conflicted and non-credible witness in that he was, quote, unquote, friends with Sandra Birchmore, whom he knew was troubled, yet engaged in suggestive conversations that ultimately led to his admission in the second interview. P.I. Italian and I were both left with the impression, based on but not limited to the above, that blank was involved in blank. Sandra Birchmore, but admitted as much as he needed to conclude his role as a witness in this case. So there's more to know about this witness. He knows more than he's divulging. Probably to save his own butt. Blank. Credibility assessment completed by P.I. Italian. Blank was interviewed by myself and colleague Robert Fries. We interviewed her at blank, home located blank, on June 9, 2022 at approximately 5:30 p.m. I view blank as a credible person. Blank was forthcoming, retrospectively, in what described as a crush that she had on Robert Devine, while she was a middle school student and Devine served as a juvenile officer, writing Devine love notes, etc. Blank expressed embarrassment for blank's behavior during that time. Conversely, blank took the risk of explaining questionable and inappropriate behavior by Robert Devine in his role as an adult and public official. In reviewing this interview, blank comments and answers to my question were consistent with that of the MSP interview by Trooper Kathleen Prince and Lieutenant John Fanning, and I did not note any dramatic deviations from what blank was now reporting to us. When challenged, blank did not appear nervous and did not observe any indications of deception. It is important to note that blank contacted the district attorney's office after reading a news article in the Boston Globe. She did this on her own and is willing to be named in not only my report, but as a witness in this investigation. Good on her. Props to whoever this witness is. This person has good character. So, and this person seems to have been taken advantage of too. Blank. I view blank as a credible witness. He was asked to recall events that exceeded 2 decades. His demeanor was resolute in response to questions, and he appeared to be upset by some of the content of questioning. I would characterize emotional responses as normal given the content of the discussion. He made a statement toward the end of his interview that he had observed had he observed any inappropriate behavior during any of the time that he worked with Devine, that he would have begun by saying something to him and would not have allowed any appropriate behavior on Devine's part to continue. Good. And I hope that is true. I view blank to be a credible witness. His response were consistent and unwavering. He was asked to recall circumstances that exceeds 2 decades. Though he could not remember some things that happened, blank approached me the day after his interview and showed me a picture of blank from the OMS yearbook. He told me that he vaguely remembered her, but that he remembers a confrontation in the juvenile office between her and Divine. He recalls that there was a circumstance, but cannot recall specifically what that circumstance was. So this person had his interview, had gone home and was thinking about things and was like, maybe I'll look at a yearbook, like something, like he knows that there's something that he remembers. He doesn't know all the facts of it. And then he sees the thing in the yearbook and he remembers some of it, but not all of it. But he didn't have to go back to them and be like, hey, after our interview, I got to thinking and it just jogged my memory. And then he went to them and showed him more information. He could have just kept that to himself. His interview was over. They didn't ask about it, whatever. But he didn't. So props to him on going back and being like, hey, I just remembered this. So, yay. He also asked me if I could pull up a picture of blank, as she had not been identified. I requested of blank the identity of her mother. Blank told me when I reached out to her by phone that she wanted to ask her permission first before giving out the name. I did not hear back from blank. Blank seemed genuinely interested in helping resolve this case. Good. Because if he could have gotten that one, maybe that would have revealed even more in his brain. Because he's going back 20 years in his brain for people. When people were kids and working with, or maybe not working with, but being around maybe some of these officers and things like that. So good. All right. Now we get to conclusion. Robert Devine took control of the Stoughton Police Explorers program, or class, on or about 2002 and changed the program model from that of a Police Explorers scouting program to that of a quasi-paramilitary program that centered on teaching aspects of policing to youth participants. It was in this program that Devine met Matthew Farwell and William Farwell. The Farwell brothers were known to have had some difficulties and disciplinary issues while attending school. Well, they still have disciplinary issues. Both embraced the Explorers program with vigor and participated in all aspects of the program. Both eventually left alternative education and entered military services. And the military still didn't correct their behavior, which sometimes it doesn't. And these parents of these boys, I hope they're ashamed of their sons. Matthew Farwell was appointed to the Wesley Police Department in September 8, 2015. He transferred to Stoughton Police Department by way of lateral transfer on February 27, 2012. William Farwell was bypassed for employment on September 6, 2011. In 2014, he received an offer of employment for the position of a patrol officer. He then requested and received military deferment under the USSERA Act. He was also received an appointment to the Massachusetts State Police and briefly attended the MSP Recruit Academy. He was eventually appointed to Stoughton Police Department on May 27, 2017. The Farwell brothers returned to the Explorers program as instructors. Matthew Farwell met Sandra Birchmore while she was participating in the program and was 13 years of age at the time. Matthew Farwell began blank relationship with Sandra Birchmore. Yuck. Evidence shows that he blanked while she was 15 years of age and Farwell was 27 years of age. Disgusting. Sandra Birchmore was blank with Matthew Farwell as a result of his role as an adult instructor in the Explorers program. This relationship led Sandra Birchmore blank relationship with William Farwell and Robert Devine. Sandra Birchmore died on February 4, 2021. The Massachusetts Medical Examiner, redacted. Matthew Farwell is redacted. After review of the personal file of Robert Devine, I located 2 letters. One letter is from the mother of Sandra Birchmore and is dated April 17th, 2014, Exhibit 31. The letter in the essence is extending thanks to the Stoughton Police Department and in particular Devine for running the Police Explorers program. Ugh. No. She just did not know what was going on. The second letter is not dated or signed, but titled, My Hero, Lieutenant Devine. No! Oh my gosh. Birchmore's mother must be rolling in her grave at this. And is missing or musing to Devine for all that he does for the community. Exhibit 32. I have entered these as exhibits that exemplify both the public trust that was violated and what the Stoughton Police Explorers class was supposed to be. Yeah. She thought that her daughter was just being taken under their wing and they were great to her because they showed her attention and like she loved it and everything made her daughter so happy. She didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. On January 24th, 2016, Robert Devine entered into an agreement for discipline between the town and an employee following the investigation that was conducted by Paul White. On February 12, 2016, civil service from Form 10 was completed in where Devine was reinstated from the position of non-civil service deputy chef to his former civil service position of a police lieutenant. Civil service from 11 to 10 was completed for the issuance of demotion from lieutenant to civil service officer. Devine completed a 60-day period of suspension on April 12, 2016. Oh, 60 days for having a disgusting relationship. In the internal affairs file for Robert Devine, the agreement for the imposition of discipline is included with the case file. Under the terms of this agreement, Section 5 describes voluntary execution. Yes, there should be an execution of Mr. Devine. I know that's not what they mean, but it should be what they mean. Mr. Devine acknowledges that he has thoroughly read this agreement, that he understands it, and is entering it into in his own free will, and further that he understands that future instances of him misusing his position or engaging in conduct unbecoming of an officer or other misconduct may result in a more serious disciplinary action being taken against him, up to and including termination from his employment. Oh no, just a termination. No, it should be up to jail time. The investigation by Paul White contained a finding that Robert Devine was not a credible person. No shit. There was a sustained finding of conduct unbecoming in that case. Recommendation. The 3 employees who were implicated as subjects of this investigation resigned from employment. Well, how honorable of them, right? They just stepped away. You know, this was just getting to be too much. Why are people just able to resign? You can resign and step away and retire, and maybe the whole world won't find out what you're like. But guess what? The whole world is finding out exactly what you are like. We are now required to make notification to the Post Commission. It is under my recommendation that Robert Devine, William Farwell, and Matthew Farwell have their certifications revoked by post, and that they be entered into the National Decertification Index. And the registered sex offenders, like that would be great. I recommend that we request of the Post Commission ahead of Post holding a hearing that Post file a subpoena for Facebook records to authenticate Marty Riggs as Robert Devine and take any other action within the scope of Post authority. So we still don't know if Marty Riggs is real or if it's Robert Devine at this point. I recommend that the entire document be sent to consultants or experts in the field of forensic statement analysis for the analytical assessment of transcripts to gauge the truthfulness of the response of Robert Devine, as well as the statements that were made to the MSP by William and Matthew Farwell, as compared to this document and all the evidence that has been submitted in this case. The objective in this recommendation is to obtain or ascertain in a collegial manner an opinion as to the foregoing. I recommend that this entire document be sent to consultants or experts in the fields of forensic psychology, particularly to an expert with a specific knowledge of child victimology and blank behavior. The objective in this recommendation is to obtain or ascertain in a collegial manner an opinion as to the foregoing. Yeah, this was definitely child victimology for sure. And I am not an expert in anything. I recommend that this document and all the respective communications concerning a relationship between the victim, Sandra Birchmore, and any military recruitment personnel be routed through the appropriate military chains of command for further investigation by the appropriate agency with the Massachusetts National Guard. I recommend that this report, as well as the transcripts for blank interviews, be shared with blank. I recommend that the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office receive a copy of this report. Employees were identified as witnesses in the case. It is my conclusion, based upon this investigation and all relevant evidence, that no other current member of Stoughton Police Department had an inappropriate relationship with victim Sandra Birchmore. As 21(1)(IA) is concluded concerning now former employees, I am also recommending that 22(3)(IA) be assigned as a continuance of this investigation for any other people who may come forward with information, and to allow for follow-up with former members of the Police Explorers Program. Respectfully, Brian J. Holmes, Deputy Chief. And aren't you glad that Brian Holmes is the Deputy Chief here, and not Robert Devine? Can you imagine what this report would have looked like if it was written by Devine? He wouldn't have done it even if he was Deputy Chief, but he was once Deputy Chief. And he got demoted to just a regular popo. And he should be no popo with no benefits, stripped of everything. Dishonorably discharged. Why don't they have that in police stations like they do in the military? Dishonorably discharged. Can we make that a thing? But that is the end of part 2 and the entire internal investigation into the Sandra Birchmore case. Next, we will be going into looking at the video from Chief McNamara after this was completed, and we will also be getting into the civil lawsuit that has been filed. If you like this video and you want justice for Sandra Birchmore, like this video, share it, subscribe so you're here for the next ones, and go become a part of the Twitter and Facebook pages Justice for Sandra Birchmore. These people need to be behind bars, and Sandra and her unborn baby need justice. I will see you next time.